Many of you asked for a London session setup, so let's analyze how you can tackle Thursday's overnight DR session in Euro with a high probability. Here in front of us, we have the price action from last week's Thursday overnight DR session from the EuroFX futures. And what I'm about to show you is a high probability time and price trade setup that you can get in Thursday's London session. The first thing that you need is simple. A long confirmation in the first half an hour after the defining range has formed, which marks the confirmation time window of 4 to 4:30 a.m. Simple as that. If price confirms long with the 4:30 a.m. candle or any time after, all the probabilities which I will show you are not in play, since that's a different time bucket. With time and price trade setups, we don't care too much about DR models and rather follow the confirmation direction and its information it gives us for the session. A DR upside model being intact and a green DR box, like in this example, is just an extra bonus. For this demonstration, we are focusing on what the algo has done in the past 18 years if the long confirmation happened in that strict time window. Why should you get all this information as a professional trader? Because just like in any other profession, you can't make great decisions without proper information. No pilot will ever depart without checking the weather, for example. You should use all available information when making a decision to buy or sell. If you put in a weak analysis, you'll get weak results, simple as that. Here is the first information that we are getting. In the past, once a confirmation happened in that time window, the DR session turned into a true one, 74.6% of the time. 25.4% historically, price closed below the defining range on a 5-minute time frame. A retracement back into the defining range happened 88% of the time, while it retraced back into the implied defining range slightly lower, 80% of the time. Since we ideally want the DR session not to close below the defining range, we will focus on the data for the 74.6% true sessions. So when and where did price retrace back into the defining range most frequently over the past 18 years? Let's find out. The maximum retracement for the session, if it held true, happened 50% of the time until 5:15 a.m., and the rest of retracements happened after that time until the session ends at 8:30 a.m. Everything right after a long confirmation in the first half an hour is considered as your entry time window up until the session ends, but with a little bonus here. What I'm showing you now is worth paying attention to. Let's have a look at all maximum retracements for a DR true session. Where exactly should you look for an entry in the defining range? Data shows that most maximum retracements back into the defining range happened in the plus 0.1920 area. Minus 0.1 marks the 70 percentile, which means that only 30% historically retraced lower than that. This level will also be included into the first retracement cluster. Since the plus 0.19 level is most likely outside the defining range, you reduce this zone to the plus 0.09 level. For your first entry zone, you ideally enter at the plus 0.09 level or one tick above it. For an entry in that area, it is therefore wise to cover the minus 0.1 level, as you would also cover more than 70% of maximum retracements based on historical events. A second bullet, if stopped out on the first one, can be taken in the minus 0.2 to minus 0.5 area. Enter one tick above and set your stop loss 3 ticks below the minus 0.5 or IDR mid. With that stop loss, you're covering around 90% of historical maximum retracements that happened in a DR true session. Isn't that insane? Apply these two areas for a potential entry throughout the session if a long confirmation happens in the first half an hour for Thursday's overnight DR session. Every entry needs a high probability target to exit your position. 70% historically, price extended toward 1.1 standard deviations during a true session. This makes the 1 standard deviation level ideal for a high probability target. But here's the beauty of the cross-filtering function in QuantX. If the maximum retracement happens up until 5:15 a.m., the likelihood of reaching 1.4 standard deviations increases. Interesting what kind of influence time has, right? So, if you enter before 5:15 a.m., you can aim for the target of 1.4 standard deviations, while with an entry after 5:15 a.m., you should rather go for the 1 standard deviation level as a target. If something like this happens, for example, you would enter the first bullet here and aim for 1.4 standard deviations as a target, since you entered before 5:15 a.m. Later on, your position would get stopped out. Why is this not another entry? Because with entries after 5:15 a.m., you would target the 1 standard deviation level, and this has already been reached before. Critical detail here. Avoid that. And there you have it. Now you have a setup that you can repeatedly execute on whenever EuroFX futures confirms longs in Thursday's overnight session between 4 and 4:30 a.m. You know exactly what to expect, where to execute, and where to exit your position based on time and price. Last but not least, all positions, whether slightly in profit or loss, should be closed with the 8:25 a.m. candle, since this candle ends at 8:30 a.m. and therefore also the session. I guarantee you that there's way more amazing insights and powerful information to the DR trading strategy. And what I share on YouTube is just a glimpse. If you really want to dive deeper into data and statistics as well as algorithmic price behavior, then feel free to visit M7DR.com. Have a good trading week, and I hope to see you in the next video. We're gonna take on the world.